Hi, it's Amelia. I wanted to drop in and tell you a little bit about my talk on Thursday. I'm giving a talk on grounding, and it's not just an energetic perspective that I'm going to be talking about. I know you are probably watching this thinking, well, I am so interested in the energetics, but we also have to acknowledge that these energetics are grounded in body. They run through our thoughts and our mind. They're inspired by, shifted by, transformed by our relationship to spirit. So these grounding practices really hit at all the parts of our bodies. Grounding gives us the ability to stand in the integrity of who we are, and really standing in the integrity when, not just when it's easy, but when the world starts shaking underneath us. Grounding practices give us some space. They give us some space. They offer a container so that we can access the tools that we know to help us when we're distressed. Or they create that container and that space to give us just a few more moments to think and reflect and create meaning and understanding of what's happening. So we're not just rushing and we're watching those words come right out of our mouth and we're going, oh gosh, I really wish I could get those back, but I wasn't grounded when I said them. So the grounding practices that we're going to be discussing on Thursday, grounding practices as body practices, as movement, and also practices of rest that support the physical body and the spiritual body being one and talking with each other. Grounding practices are mental practices, practices that help us ease patterns of anxiety and distress, breathing practices, but we're going to go a little deeper into mental practices. Grounding practices as spiritual practices, practices that help us nurture that connection to the awe and the wonder and the God of 1,000 names and faces, connecting us to what inspires us, what supports us, what brings us, peace beyond the frame of the everyday. We're also, of course, going to talk about grounding practices as energetic practices, practices that let us really ground our energy to this planet below us, this earth energy that, like I say, grows the trees and blooms the flowers, but also energetic practices that help us unstick stuck energies. Many energies that are kind of settling in from what I might call little t traumas of the day, or even the bigger ones that tend to come back as we cycle around our spiral. We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about how these practices help us come home. And I think the reason why I'm choosing this time of year for this particular talk is because we're maybe, just maybe, coming home to a different home in the holidays. We're maybe looking at family members who disagree with what we believe in terms of the vaccinations, in terms of the politics. We may be coming home to chairs that are missing at the table. We may be coming home with our own inner unsteadiness. So these practices help us come home here to our essence, so that when we come home, we can bring ourselves with enough space to be non-reactive. So let's try a practice right now. This is a practice I love. It's sort of collection of a few practices just put together, but it's for the mind. It's for the unsettled mind, the mind that races and races and races, kind of like that uncontrollable monkey mind, they call it. As we step into a time when we're going to have a lot to process, I think this might be a really sweet tool or practice to take in with you in your back pocket. All right. So let's start by using one of the most important tools that we have, our breath. We always have it. So taking a few deep breaths and intentionally beginning to bridge our spiritual self and our physical one. And as we're breathing, beginning to remember how we inspire ourselves with our breath. Inspiration, bringing spirit into the body. And then the out breath. That simple act of making more room for that which is nurturing or stabilizing or sustaining. The entire practices of intentional breathing allow us to be more grounded between the spirit and the body. This process by itself, just watching the breath, helps us to begin to move our attention from whatever's racing in our mind back here. So let's just keep practicing that for a moment. And I know that even when we're breathing intentionally, even when we're focusing on, maybe slowing the breath or exhaling longer than the inhale, still there are times when those racing thoughts can intervene and intersect. So one of the things I love to do, adding on to that breath, that intentional breathing, is adding 2 hands right here to the side of your head. So why don't you try that? Just begin to feel your hands on your head. And if this gesture is impossible, maybe your shoulders don't move like that, or, maybe your body is built a little differently, don't worry. Imagine your hands on either side of the head. The hold works the same way. So feel, sense, imagine your hands on the side of your head, intentionally creating a container for your thoughts. Feel or sense that gentle pressure supporting the holding of your thoughts. Maybe even going so far as to affirm that they cannot run away. These thoughts staying close to me. These thoughts staying in that wisdom space of your mind. And then add the breath back in. And you can stay in that position as long as it feels nurturing for you. But I want to invite you to join me on Thursday for more grounding practices, more principles, maybe even some new perspective, so that you can take them with you as you come home and as you go home this holiday season. So there's more information just down there at the end of this little letter, and I welcome you. I'm also offering my meditation album and my affirmation album as gifts. I think together they're about as much as the whole talk. This really is about gifting more than receiving. So you're welcome here. Thank you for these moments of your attention and intention. And I'll see you on down the road.